Alright, so as you can clearly see, the airplane's not ready. Yes, sir.
You gonna fix it?
I told you the parts are on back order and till the end of the month, and then when they come in, you've got to put the airplane back together, finish the annual, and then you can go flying.
I want to go flying now.
I realize that, but it's completely out of my control. So
you call me when the airplane's ready, okay? Text me, something.
So in this episode, another tips and tricks while working in the hangar. This channel is about working on aircraft and flying those airplanes. So come take a seat and let's go for a flight.
Can't be out of coffee.
Alrighty then, back in the hangar because that's broken. Well, as you can tell, Sheila's a little under the weather, and we'll have more info on that later. But today, it's a rainy, crappy day, and we're in the hangar. Since we're in the hangar, let's do some more tips and tricks. I got another list here, and we'll start off with one I have actually wished I had probably included, or should have included in the first video, which was my ForgetMeNots. Now, these little beauties are basically just alligator clips that have some high-vis cording on it. I use a really thin paracord, and whenever I need to remember something to safety something, or if I've got something disconnected that I need to remember to tighten, you can take one of these little alligator clips and hook it onto that spot, and it will remind you to come back later and tighten something or safety something. So, ForgetMeNots. Now, say you're doing some sort of fabrication and you want an exact measurement or a template of something you're working on. Now, one way of doing that is to get a piece of paper and a pencil, and you can do what's called a rub tracing. So you take your piece of paper and you lay it on top of the surface of the area you want to duplicate, and then with the side of the pencil you're going to trace over the top of that area, and any holes or edges are going to pop out and you'll see them in the rub tracing, and it will give you a perfect template. I just had it. We're good to go. My next thing, I just dropped something. Well, the best way to find it is to use a flashlight, and not like you think with just turning on the light to see it in the dark or a unlit area. But you're going to use the flashlight and put it right on the ground and create a shadow. And something as small as like a cotter pin or a washer, even a small nut, is going to just jump right out at you. I've found so many things by using this technique, and especially the last and only piece of hardware that I needed. We're going to be talking about some sheet metal stuff, and one which was actually pointed out by the plane lady. They're building an RV, and they came into a situation where they had one fastener holding on a piece of structure, and there's no way to clamp it to get it together. So what you end up doing is taking some like rubber or tubing. I prefer to use foam rubber. That rubber or that foam rubber is going to contact the surface and push it together while you start driving that rivet. It's only going to take probably about 3 or 4 taps before that rivet starts to swell, and then it'll start holding the material on by itself. Of course, with this you can use the foam rubber or actual rubber or even some rubber tubing. If you want some more information on that, go check out the Plane Lady and their RV build. So I just want to take a moment here to talk about my very first sponsor to this channel. Big thanks to these guys, because without them I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So their product is one you can either use on the engine, you can use it on the panel, or I've been putting it right here in this tank. And since my tanks are full, I'm gonna have to use it elsewhere. So I'm just going to use it here to kind of clean off the wing, make it a little more aerodynamic. But I want to thank all the dead presidents for sponsoring this channel. Now this one is involving our tools. Probably recognize what one of these are. Torque wrench. This tip is for taking care of your tools, and with torque wrenches it's very important that you don't put these back in your toolbox all cranked in with the pressure on the adjustments. You want to take that torque setting back down to 0. It relieves the pressure on the spring and will keep the calibration lasting longer in this tool. Now if you've ever worked in the industry, either on airplanes or on automobiles or motorcycles, I'm sure that you've tried to break a fastener loose and you get those caught on something when the fastener finally breaks loose. A way to relieve that is to be on the box end if at all possible, and what you're going to end up doing is tapping the wrench, and that percussion will actually break the torque loose and will prevent you from dragging those. So that's just a little quick, I don't know, tip. Now if you're cutting something with a hacksaw or with a cutoff wheel and you want to be careful not to tear out the edges, you could take sacrificial pieces of either a block of wood or other pieces of metal, clamp it up in a vise or with clamps, and as you're cutting through there, the center piece will have less tendency to cut out and splinter. So I have yards and yards of actually keep scraps of pieces of wood and extra sheet metal laying around so that I can actually clamp those up either in a vise or with actually squeeze clamps or C-clamps. Now if you've ever shot rivets into nut plates, you're gonna love this one. Most people think that when shooting rivets you have a bucking bar on the back end and the gun on the manufacturer's side of the head. This tip actually reverses that. What you want to do is put your rivets in the holes, lay your nut clip on top, and then shoot directly onto the shop side, forming the bucktail. And with a little bit of practice, which shouldn't take too long, this is a pretty easy technique, you'll get fantastic results by back shooting the fasteners going through your nut plates. Now let's say you want to take a little piece, or you want to mark a straight line across a piece of material, and provided that that edge is really straight, what you want to do is take your marking instrument and place it against your finger, and then your finger will rest against that edge, and then just drag it across and you get a perfectly straight line. Now this next tip is sort of fundamental when it comes to drilling holes, using a center punch. Now the center punch that I recommend are these automatic center punches because they have a predetermined pressure at which they make the dimple. You can go and buy and get these spring ones. However, depending on how far you pull this will depend on how much pressure it puts into the material, and you can deform the material quite a bit as opposed to much less than the automatic center punches. The reason for actually doing center punching is to make sure that the drill bit will go into that exact spot. Now if you have a drill bit that doesn't have a good point on it and can't find that little dimple, it's going to end up walking because the way the shape of the drill bit, the flute comes out, and you can actually get it to start walking on those tips of the drill bit, and watching a drill bit go across your nice piece of material is cringy at best. The next tip is again more of a, this is something you should have in your toolbox, and it's a pair of forceps. And I know what you're thinking, and no, it's not for that. This is an extra set of fingers that you can lock a piece of material into, like a washer, trying to get into a small area. You can actually lock these in place, and it will hang on to either a washer, a nut, cotter key. You'll see me use these quite a bit in some of the videos, and as a matter of fact, I use these to install the washers for the ground stud on the tank installation video. So, Forceps. And I think we'll end this session for tips and tricks with a real quick, but say you have a drill bit or whatnot and you want to go down through a piece of material to a predetermined depth. Take a piece of tape, mark off how deep you want to go, put that piece of tape onto your drill bit, and when it starts sweeping off the chips, you know you've hit your depth and you can stop drilling. So this is the poor man's drill stop. Well, that's it for the tips and tricks on this one. I hope you found something helpful, and if you have any suggestions or want to drop a comment down below, I would definitely appreciate it. Now, I'm not some rich and famous YouTuber asking you to like and subscribe to this channel. I'm an aviator asking you to like and subscribe to this channel, because that's the way YouTube works. If you don't click those buttons, YouTube doesn't know that you want to see more aviation content and won't show you more. But if you don't like what you've seen, please leave me a nasty comment down below, because that's the way the internet works. May all your flying be good flying. And the results will be fantastic. Fantastic.